hello, and welcome to this episode of the Healer Roundtable discussions. Today, we're exploring a dynamic that shows up often in healing and spiritual work, but isn't always openly discussed: authority and projection. Many people arrive in healing spaces carrying patterns that are shaped by religious systems, teachers, or past practitioners where authority was centralized and personal discernment was often discouraged. When those patterns enter the practitioner-client relationship, projection can easily form, placing the practitioner in a position of power or expectation that was never intended. Our conversation today looks at how these dynamics develop, how they show up in sessions, and how practitioners can hold space in a way that supports autonomy rather than dependence. Joining me for this conversation are three wonderful practitioners bringing thoughtful perspectives to the topic. First, we have Heather Zimmerman. She is the founder of Divine Ascension Co., where she bridges behavioral psychology and spiritual practice to support people navigating spiritual awakening. With academic training in psychology and applied behavioral analysis and more than 20 years of experience working across behavioral health and service industries, Heather combines clinical insight with intuitive work, including energy healing, Akashic Records guidance, and inner child integration. Next, we have Natalia Dekine, who is an intuitive and certified healer whose path through illness and spiritual transformation reshaped her understanding of healing work. A former lay minister in the Christian church, Natalia now explores how hierarchy and authority quietly recreate themselves in healing spaces and works to support individuals in reclaiming their own inner knowing and energetic sovereignty. And we are also joined by Tam Dillon, mentor, educator, and creator of the Yogic Tarot system. Tam guides practitioners in integrating ancient wisdom with modern ethical practice and serves as the founder and chair of Critical Mass, where she works to restore dignity and responsibility to spiritual practice while supporting a global community of healers and changemakers. Thank you all for being part of this conversation. I'd love to kick us off with this question. Why do people often place practitioners or spiritual teachers in positions of authority? Who'd like to begin?
I'll start. So I think that typically when people are looking for a mentor, a coach, someone to give guidance, they're at the point where they've probably tried a bunch of things and it hasn't worked. So they're looking for that guidance from someone who has either been through that before or has some sort of expertise or knowledge about what they're asking about. So they hold you in kind of a regard where you have that past experience or the education or something. So you should be an expert at whatever it is, whatever service that you're offering or guidance that you're, helping them try to seek out.
Right. So it's automatic, right? Automatically, because you're coming to somebody for support, there's this automatic authority that they're placing upon you as the practitioner. Yeah.
Plus, especially if you're charging for a service, like there should be some sort of background into why you are charging for that. Like, what are your qualifications? What puts you in that position of power? Because money is an energetic exchange. So when you're investing in something, you expect a certain amount of results or a certain amount of that authority, that power that goes along with that.
Yeah. I would say also, to kind of piggyback on that, a lot of times for me, I see clients that have been in therapy or have been in some type of relationship or healing of some sort where, I don't know, for me, looking at a therapist, I'm like, oh, this person has all the answers, right? So I definitely would automatically start to put them in that place. And so if now they're coming to me and they've already seen this person, they're like, oh, well, this is similar, right? Because our mind has to make sense of it. It's like, oh, so I'm going to automatically put you in that position as well, right? Yeah. Do you think that there's any cultural or maybe even religious conditioning that contributes to that?
I was
Oh, Natalia's like, yep.
I was like, here we go. So I think that religious systems and the hierarchy within religious systems teach people not to look for an answer within themselves. It teaches them to go to a spiritual leader and confide in that spiritual leader. And that conditioning and the reinforcement of that conditioning and the good old, well, you're a sinner saved by grace. You can't trust your own heart and your thought processes. It's going to discourage you from going outside of that space. And that creates serious control and putting you into a box. I think of an old scripture, you're out of your heart. It's the most treacherous thing. There's this negative, like just this negative energy surrounding trusting yourself,
Mm,
trusting the divinity that is in you, and you go outside, hi kitty, you go outside of or go outside of searching that divinity within because you've been conditioned to go to the priest, go to the pastor, go to the bishop, go to the elder, and really it creates this, it reinforces this pattern of trying to find it outside of you and
mm.
not getting the experience that you would get from somebody in a healing practitioner or a therapist, where you're getting tools to come back to yourself.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I tried to look into religion when I was younger. I had a near-death experience. I was an atheist, but I lived in a haunted house. I started questioning things. I tried to figure out, something more, right? And I grew up in a semi-religious household and I tried to do that. But the one issue that I had, even before I really knew what that language was, the issue I had with organized religion was that it didn't make sense to me that there had to be a mediator between me and the divine. Why do I have to come to you and talk to you about personal things, first of all, but also what's special about my life? Why am I here? What is my purpose? I didn't believe that. And to have that be such an important part of the hierarchy in that religious aspect of many of the religious constructs. I couldn't, it didn't make sense to me. It never made sense to me because the whole point is finding your sovereignty and what resonates with you. What is your truth? Because it might not be the same as mine. So what resonates for you versus what someone is telling you is right. Not to mention oh, I can go sin and do all these things. All I have to do is say Hail Mary and I'll be fine. Like, that's not exactly how it works either. So there's so many little pieces of that are, related to the hierarchical structure and you have to do this or you have to do that to be accepted into heaven. Sorry, but heaven is a state of mind. I don't need you to tell me this, right? So there's so many things that are ingrained in the religious dogma that we really have our work cut out for us as healing practitioners to try to work through all of that with people.
Yeah, I've got to jump in with what these ladies are saying. The kind of pedestaling that goes on in spiritual spaces, I think, is just that automatic response of, what Heather said right in the beginning, that you are in that position of authority. You're trained in what you do, you walk the path. Well, we're assuming that you have. That's why you have that monetary energetic exchange going on. And people coming to you are coming to you in a space of vulnerability. They don't know, they want guidance, they're looking for that teacher. So that pedestal aspect is just a natural part of the human condition. And for practitioners, it's a conversation that I have when I'm mentoring someone, is that you can't disregard that and minimize yourself and be like, oh, I'm nothing. Like, you've got to understand that you are in that position of authority. You're not an authoritarian, but you are in a position of authority because you know your stuff. And that's where the difference comes in between spiritual spaces, where we would like that difference to be between spiritual spaces and that organized religion, is that organized religion demands to be pedestaled. Where it's like, I am in charge. I do know better than you. I am your one direct link to the great source, to God. And I think that's one of the big differentiating things between spirituality and organized religion, is that it is about sovereignty. I think that was a beautiful word to use, because it is. We're here to empower the people that we work with to find the answers for themselves. I don't do the work for my clients. I walk alongside them while they do the work. Yes, I'm an authority in what I do, but I'm not gonna, I'm the one sole answer. Like, no, we've all got different answers. There's plenty of people out there to work with. So I love the points that you ladies have made there.
Yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, Heather.
One of the things that I teach and implement in my practice is it's called horizontal partnership, right? So we are all one, we are all connected, we are all expressions of source having different experiences, but we are all equals. And so, yes, I might be in a position of authority for this situation, but like you said, I'm not going to walk the path for you. I'm not going to make the decisions for you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I am holding that safe space to basically hold your hand and help you feel comfortable with making those decisions yourself, asking those open-ended questions, figuring out what it is that you want. Like I said, what is your truth? No judgments, no bias, just what works for you. But it is all about that equality and that partnership, because you are in that position of authority initially. Sure, that's why you're here. That's why you came to me. But what I'm trying to do is empower you to reach that same space and that same level of authority in your own life, right?
Right. I love it. So this naturally happens, right? If you guys have already stated, this is naturally, there is this position of authority. Culturally, we see this, especially if we're talking about past religious conditioning. We definitely see that. What are some of the signs though? So let's look at the practitioner out there who might be newer or who might have been doing this for a while and might not realize that a client is projecting authority, or is putting that responsibility onto the practitioner rather than their own discernment, rather than allowing their own discernment to come through. What are some of the signs that you ladies see in that area?
Oh, I saw plenty in reading tarot professionally. People love to put their problems on you and be like, you make the decisions. I think
Oh,
the
yeah.
number one phrase of "you're the psychic, you tell me what to do." Like, the amount of times I was told that, and it's like, no. Let's look at your options and let's explore those things together so
Yes.
you can make your own choices and decisions. And I did see it a lot in reading. Mentoring, not so much. I think because the people that I'm working with have got a good balance in understanding those lines and those boundaries of like, yes, I have got a wealth of knowledge, I have got a lot of experience, but that's not what I'm here for. But with different modalities like readings, Heather, I don't know if you see this in like Akashic record readings, even inside the realms of Reiki, where you're the authority, you're the professional, you're the expert, so you've got to have the answers for me. You need to tell me what to do. And that's where, with the way that people phrase their questions when they come for a reading, is hugely important. And if they ask one of those "you tell me what to do" questions, I rephrase that, and I'm like, let's look at it from this perspective. Yeah, I think that's one of the big ones is, you tell me what to do. What do the cards say? What should I do? What direction should I go? Should I take the job? Should I marry this person? Should I take that holiday? I think I've heard, possibly on one of the episodes, someone talking about, it's that level of codependence where you're to the point of like, you're at a traffic stoplight and you phone up your practitioner and you're like, okay, the light's green, what should I do?
Yep.
You know what to do. Yeah, I think that for me is some of the big red flags that pop out.
It's funny that you bring that up because I know that when people start learning, you refer to tarot, and that is really common for people that are first starting in reading cards is to pull a card a day, right? And we all know that that's pretty common practice. We pull a card a day looking for guidance or, insights of some sort. But then there's people that take that at really extreme, right? And it's like now the tarot cards have all the power. And if that tarot card comes up a bad, quote unquote, bad card, then I can't do anything, right? Or like horoscopes, right? Like I do astrology, and so astrology is like the same kind of idea. Like, well, was Mercury retrograde? Well, was this planet this? Does this mean that I can't do anything? And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Like, are we giving all of our power and authority over to this thing, to this modality, to whatever it is? When like, no, I'm giving you the landscape. Here's what's happening. You make the decision from this, right? Natalia, you've got something there. I see it.
So had I've had experiences like this within sessions with clients with Reiki, as far as, them showing up, well, you're supposed to make me feel better. And, you're going to do the work. I'm going to go out of here and I'm going to feel light as a feather and go on about the rest of my day. But I always redirect them to the power and the divinity that they carry within themselves. And then I had an experience recently, at a sound bath that I was facilitating. And I was explaining about chakras and frequency in our body. And a question came up about, well, you're talking about opening chakras. How much is too much? Because I'm very protective of my soul.
Oh.
And it was, I wish that I had a camera because every face was just like, whoop, just looked right at me. And I
What's she
said,
gonna say?
yeah, yeah, like, how's she going to handle that? And I said, you have intuition. You have at the core of you the ability to know when something is too much. And you have the ability inside of you and the power within you to say, I want more.
Mhm.
I'm going to challenge you to figure out where that sweet spot is because everything that I'm doing today, it's been around for centuries. This is nothing new. You could do the research on it. There's scientific evidence behind what it does to your body. I encourage you to find that sweet spot. And everybody in the room was like, huh. It's just saying, here, I'm going to hand you this gift back and
Mhm.
give you the power to decide what's going to work for you.
Yes.
Absolutely. There's that, having them be their own sovereign being again, right?
Mm.
So I see in tarot Akashic records, like there's an addiction almost to getting these kind of readings done. And I'm almost tempted to be like, okay, you can get 2 readings a year or 2 readings every 6 months, something. But I just know that they're going to go to someone else, and I would rather they at least get the right information. But
Right.
it's a boundary that I'm still trying to figure out with people who don't listen about being their own sovereign being, right?
Yeah.
But who says, as a practitioner, as someone who does readings, who says that you have to answer their question with a sentence? Who says you can't answer with a question? So, okay, let's redirect how, like, let's ask more questions and get to the point of what you're really asking, because I'm not going to make the decision for you. I can show you what the cards show that may or may not happen if you follow the same path. I can show you what the cards are saying about your experience, but it's not making any decision for you. You have to do that. And even in my healing sessions, inner child healing, energy healing, the way that I do my sessions is I prompt them by asking them questions, but I make them do the work. Like, okay, we go into a meditative state, we ground. Okay, close your eyes. Let's think of a thing that we're trying to heal. What do you see? So you prompt them to give them the power to steer the conversation, to steer the session into what works for them. And I open my channel, I talk to their guides, I talk to the records, I do a lot of things I get these truth tingles, I like to call them, but all I'm doing is helping you pull the right thread so that we can stay aligned to what needs to be healed or addressed in this session to be most effective for you. And so I utilize all these gifts, but really they're just empowering the other person to allow them to steer the way the conversation goes by asking those questions, by finding out what it is they actually need, reading between the lines and figuring out what the root of it is, not the surface question, because we all know the surface question is never really what they're trying to get at, right? So you have to kind of dig and let them figure it out on their own and just be there to ask the right questions.
Love it. What I'm hearing you guys pull forward is really putting it back onto the client. When they're asking those questions of tell me what to do, what should I experience, right? What should I feel? Like all of those kind of questions where they're asking us to do it, to prove it. What I'm hearing everyone say is we're putting it back on you, and we're doing so in a way to empower them, to have them step more into their sovereignty, especially bringing it into their awareness where maybe they haven't been in relationships or experiences like that. And I know oftentimes that's a little bit of a shock, right? Like, wait, what? wait, what, me? Like I have, what do you mean? It's so easy just to let you tell me what to do, right? It's a lot harder for me to say, oh, this is my decision. So what would you say are, because sometimes we can unintentionally reinforce some of these dynamics of authority. And also, what are some of the practices that help you really keep that transparency and really keep those healthy boundaries in that exchange with your clients?
Well, like Natalia just gave an example about handing that gift back, right? So, as a healer, you're supposed to be empowering them and teaching them how to heal themselves, right? Not teaching them, but guiding them through that process. So you're empowering them to be, so you don't want to build a dependence. You want them to not have to need you anymore at some point, right? So when they're like, okay, well, what does this mean? What does this sign mean? What should I do? I'm like, okay, well, here, this is my toolkit. This is how I came across these tools. Let me teach you how to talk to your own spirit guides so you don't need the readings anymore. Let me teach you how to do what I do in a way that looks right for you, because it might not be channeling. It might not be Akashic records. It might just be meditation and speaking to your guides. It might be stuff you get in your dreams. So you have to figure out what that person's strengths are, what they're willing to learn and put the time and effort into, because it takes consistency. It doesn't happen overnight, or else, we wouldn't be asking for money for the things that we do, right? We all earn this, and we want to be able to teach other people to do it for themselves. So not only do you ask those questions and guide them and give them the power during the session, but once they reach that level of confidence, because you're showing them that they can do it on their own, that you teach them the tools so that they have everything they need and they essentially don't need you anymore. There's
Right.
billions of people in the world. You can't help every single one, but you can help people learn to help themselves, right?
Absolutely.
I agree with that. And one of the things that I like to do is talk about how I got into what I am doing and why. And, you mentioned earlier, Heather, that you had a near-death experience, if I remember correctly. Very similar with myself. And I talk about how I was led by spirit into the healing arts, Reiki and sound, and then the intuition and the intuitive gift was already present because I was operating in it in the church. So that was already there, but just giving them the window of understanding to say, hey, this is what happened in my life. And I was led. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean you were led? I just kept asking the question, where's the healing at? Where's the healing at? And when I asked the question, it was just it was just great. The universe was strategic. Okay, I'm going to give you this now. I'm going to let you taste this. I'm going to bring this to you now and let you taste this. This is outside of the scope of everything that you've been taught because you were taught healing only comes one way. And now you're seeing that there are things, there are modalities in the earth, in here, in nature. Goodness, I'm looking outside the window of my office. I can walk in the woods, and that's healing, right? But giving them the story behind it, and it seems to open a window of, huh, well, you had a curiosity that drove you into this, and now you've learned it and you're teaching it. I can learn it too.
Yeah.
And I can go teach it too. And it creates this just this deep-seated curiosity. And for those that are more, I should say, they're straddling the line of I'm interested, but I'm a little afraid because I've been hearing X, Y, and Z for a long time. I don't want to go to hell. Hell is a state of mind.
Yes.
Um, so, hmm, she's not dead or burning at the stake.
Yep.
Maybe I should think about this.
There's a really great saying that was taught to me when I did my mindfulness masters and my counseling courses through the same teacher, and he says, the old saying, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day; teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime.
Yes.
But teach others how to teach others how to fish, and you fix world hunger. And I'm like, yes, that is like the epitome of healing work. That's an art form in itself, and that's what I'm hearing from both of you is you give them that toolbox where it's like you can do this, and guess what, you can likely do this for others as well if you learn to do it for yourself, because that's what we've all done. We all learn to do it for ourselves first, and we're like, hey, this is amazing, I want to do this for others. Like we hear that very commonly in the practitioner spaces. Had this really amazing healing experience and I want to share this with the world. And I get that there's a bit of that psychology that comes into that, but giving people their toolboxes, and it's there isn't a one size fits all. A person might need an Akashic Records reading. They might need a couple of Reiki sessions. They might just need a coach that walks alongside them for a couple of months, and then they're like, okay, cool, now go for a Reiki session. Worked with a really great chiropractor for about 3 months, and she said, okay, I'm done with you now, you need to go for acupuncture, and you need to go for a different modality, like I can't do anything else for you. And I was like, okay. I'll move along swiftly then. And that's how we should be with our clients, is showing them that there's so many roads leading to the same places. There's no one fixed path. I think that again differentiates us between spirituality and that organized religion. Organized religion, it's like, nope, this is the only path. Whereas there's spiritual practitioners who are like, hey, there's multiple ones to choose from. What suits you? What's going to work for you?
And I think something that Natalia said, sorry, it was really important, was about sharing her story. So Tam, you've been on my podcast. I love my podcast because it's a platform for people who have been through, it's a lot of practitioners, but it's not all practitioners. It's people who have been through the path in some way, shape, or form, have had near-death experience, have had these huge transformational shifts in so many different ways, that when you can share your story and be like, this is what happened to me, this is what happened when I came out the other side. And with all of these stories and them all looking so different, someone is going to be able to relate to that. So being able to share that, and even as a practitioner who's been through the fire, who's come out the other side, like for me, especially, like I'm very trauma informed, not only because of my education, but because of the stuff that I've been through in my life. And to be able to have that personal experience and be like, I understand what you're going through. This is what happened to me. It gives an extra, and I've talked about this on some of the other episodes, it gives you an extra set of like empathetic skills, not just I understand conceptually, but like I know what you're going through, and I know how difficult a lot of that stuff is, because unless you've been through it, you don't really understand about addiction. You don't really understand about loss of a parent. You don't understand about all of these different things that the human experience can encompass. That when you have that as a practitioner, as a healer, it gives you that, extra level of comfort for your client, but also builds that rapport. We're like, okay, you went through something. You, like she said, like Natalia said, you didn't die, you weren't burned at the stake. You went through this, you survived. Okay, tell me, how I can do the same thing. And I think that's really empowering as a practitioner as well, to have the ability to earn and have that level of trust with a client, because there's it humanizes you. Not only are you in a position of power and authority, but it humanizes you, because it's like, okay, well, I didn't just learn this in a classroom, right? I have the life experience too. And that's, I think, what a lot of practitioners in this kind of healing space have in common, is that we've been through a lot of the stuff that we're teaching. That's why we got into it. We became passionate about it because we went through that, and we want to help you.
Fits into your traditional trainings. If you go and you train with a Peruvian shaman or a medicine person in Africa, they're going to strip you down right down to the bare minimum and rebuild you back up. They're going to force you through the fire, whether you want to or not. They're going to take you to death's doorstep and bring you back, or you got to figure your own way back. And for us in that kind of Western setting, where initiating, but we're initiating through life's experiences, through near-death experiences, through severe illnesses, through massive traumas, losses, addictions. We're going through the fire on a regular basis. And for me, all of the experiences that I've had, I look back at them, I'm like, oh, that was initiation. That was definitely an initiation right there. So it's no different to when we were 10,000 years ago in a small little village doing initiation with the previous shaman. We were just, the ancestors are initiating us now. They just do it a little differently.
I wanted to add, and was it, I can't remember the quote off of the top of my head exactly, but the way out is through, and you have to go through it. Um, and I think, especially in the Western world, in certain circles, in certain places, nobody wants to deal with that. Nobody wants to go through the fire. We want this to be easy peasy. I'm going to say my mantras and say my affirmations, and I'm going to keep it moving. But it makes it, like you were saying, Heather, so much more relatable, and makes you, it kind of, they see you're in that authoritative space because you are taking money and because you've trained and learned and all of that stuff too. But I also think it is super powerful when they can see the humanity in you as well. Like, I have walked through this, and this is why. I chose to do this, and this, and you have the same access to it. And I said that at the sound bath on Friday. I said, this is accessible. This is not something that's far out of your reach. This is accessible and available to you.
I love that. I I want to talk about the ones that, oh, like you said earlier, Heather, they will come to you for every single decision. Or it's like, I can't do this until I talk to Tam, right? Right. Or I'm gonna go do this thing, but I have to get, like, I have to go see, right, Natalia first, and then I can do this. It's like those people that are putting all, like, how do we handle that? Like, where we need to set that boundary to say, I think Heather, you said it earlier, right? Okay, reading twice a year. Like, where do we put that in? Because I know people who will, say, the Akashic record said this, and it hasn't happened yet, and so I need to ask again because, like, what's happening, right? It's like they're putting all of that in. Where do we as the practitioner put that boundary? What does that look like? How can we do it? If somebody is in that situation right now where they're like, oh my goodness, I totally see this, I have a client who is doing that, how do we now, like, put that boundary so that we empower them, but also we're not here to, say what they're doing is right or wrong, right? I'm not trying to say that they're doing is right or wrong, but What I want is to empower you. How do we do that? How do we set that boundary? What advice do you have for other healers?
Have the hard conversation. A lot of healers. I mean, I was one of them as a baby reader. Like I struggled to have that conversation. I was just like, no, it's okay. I'll take your money again. I'll read the cards for you. I'm just gonna tell you the same thing. It's okay. And then I was like, I can't keep doing that because ethically it's not okay. Mm-hmm. So it's having the strength and the courage to have the hard conversations with those types of clients and know that it's for their benefit as well as yours. Energetically, it's a drain on you as a practitioner. You got that client coming in constantly drawing on you and your energy, being like, give me the answer, give me the answer. So be okay having those uncomfortable conversations. And there's I mean, it does come down to the person that you're talking to. I've got certain clients where I can just tell them straight. I'm like, look, you're being codependent now. You sort your shit out. And then I've got others where I take a bit more of a gentler approach. I'd be like, why do you feel that you're struggling to make these decisions without coming to me first? Where is that possibly coming from? Let's have a look at that. And let's see if we can address that for you. So it's either having the direct conversation if you've got a client like that, or exploring that with them to understand where is that coming from so that they can possibly see something about themselves. Because I think for a lot of clients, they don't realize what they're doing. They don't realize that attachment that's forming. They're just like, this is the person who's going to tell me what to do, and this is my go-to. I mean, I've been called people's go-to many times. I'm like, that's really sweet. I don't want to be. Too much pressure, man.
Yes.
I don't want that kind of responsibility.
Trying to take care of my own life. I don't need to take care of yours.
I mean, I need to make my own decisions here. Like, come on, I can't make everybody else's. I mean, you got 20, 30 clients seeing you in a month, and you're making decisions for all of them. Like, talk about decision fatigue. No.
Yeah.
I think that is important, being able to, especially as a practitioner, as being someone who's put in that position of authority, right? You need to be able to have those hard conversations. But if you're someone who is non-confrontational, because I know a lot of us are, there's ways that you can try to prevent those conversations from needing to happen as well. So for like the example that you just gave about why hasn't this happened yet, things like that. I think this is also where ethically and a practitioner with some integrity, it's important to also give the background, the education, inform them like, okay, well, let's talk about divine timing. Let's talk about how the universe works, because if you try to force it, it's going to take even longer, like about trust and surrender. So you kind of have to give them a little bit of that background so they understand, okay, well, maybe it just isn't the right time yet. Right. And you have to meet them where they're at and kind of explain that to them in a way that they're going to understand, right? But also there's, again, with giving them the tools, like, so when I was trying to figure out how to not have anxiety anymore and not focus on the past or the future and live in the present moment, one of the things that I taught myself was I would ask myself, if something happened, like you get a phone call, it's the doctor, they're like, we need you to come in, we have to have a conversation about these test results, whatever. Human nature, we automatically go to worst case scenario, and it's nothing, we haven't even had the conversation yet. Why are you worried about worst case scenario when maybe they just, because of HIPAA, they can't tell you over the phone that everything's fine, right? So I taught myself to ask myself these questions. Is there anything that I can do about this right now in this moment? Is this in my control or is it out of my control? Is this going to matter in 5 minutes, in 5 days, in 5 weeks, in 5 months, in 5 years? And depending on the answer to that question, well, a lot of my anxiety disappeared. So giving your clients something like that, depending on the situation, you can cater it to whatever it is, giving them some sort of like checklist to help their nervous system be like, okay, wait, is this important? Is this something I can figure out on my own? To try to prevent having to have those hard conversations and give them, again, that power to make their decisions on them, like for themselves.
Yeah, I've got to agree with that. Educate your clients, absolutely, and it's adding to that toolbox you were chatting about earlier as well. You're equipping them with the tools. If you the person's go-to for the last 10 years and you walk out tomorrow and get hit by a bus, then what? You know, you've left them with no tools and nowhere to go to now make the decisions. I love that point that you've made. Yeah, education, add to that toolbox.
Mhm.
I agree with that as well. The toolbox, educating them in the beginning. I like to, when someone is signing up to have sessions with me, I set the stage immediately. I even go so far as, depending on the person, and I usually can get away with this with the clients that I have now. I'm not the crystal ball reader, okay? That's not the energy I'm working in. This is to give you tools so that when I am not present, you can go back to these things because I'm not going to be accessible to you all the time, nor do I want you to think that I am accessible to you all the time. And then I also have had the hard conversation, and this is something I had to do recently. And I use these words. I said, I've taken you as far as I can take you.
Ooh.
That's a good one.
I
Yeah.
have taken you as
Yeah.
far as I can take you. And so now it is time for you to decide what's your next course of action. What's the next path that's suited for you? But I've taken you as far as I can take you now. Um, I remember when I was going through my medical stuff, and it would just piss me off because I'd be like, the doctor, I wish you would just say, I've taken you as far as I can take you.
Yeah.
I'm taking you as far as I can take you. I really don't know what to do beyond this point. I knew I could do this, this, and this. We followed that protocol. It's time for you to go looking for somebody else, boo boo, or try to take control of your health yourself in some way, in that way. So I equate it to my experience with that. But I set the tone in the beginning and let them know I don't want you to become dependent on me because I am doing you a disservice by allowing you to continue in that energy. All I'm doing is awakening the divinity in you and teaching you how to access it for yourself.
Yep. Yep.
That's all I'm doing.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
I love that. And I would 100% agree with everybody. Everything that everybody said is really setting those expectations about what is happening or what this is about is key. And I think Tam, you also hit it down. I don't like hard conversations. Those just sound horrible to me. So I like important conversations instead because they feel like there's more power there. Like it's important. And it is an important conversation. It's an important conversation about their well-being and our well-being. And so when I look at it from that frame, it helps me as somebody who is not, who struggled in the very beginning with having more of those challenging conversations that like, oh, this is just an important conversation that we need to have. And when I was able to kind of settle into that, it was like, oh, okay, this is just important. That's all it is. It's just an important conversation. We're going to talk about some things, and it doesn't have to be, because growing up, my father would say to me, it was like a trigger for me. My father would say to my mother, we need to talk. And then that came to me, right? If I was in trouble, my dad only told me that when it was something that I did wrong and that he needed to have a conversation with me. And so it was a big trigger for me. And so I had to learn that those words, for one, were a trigger, but also those conversations, they were always so tumultuous for me that it didn't have to be that way. And so dealing with somebody who, whether I'm in a relationship with or I'm in a client practitioner relationship with, there's important conversations that need to be had. And I think just setting that container is also what I heard everybody said, is setting that container of what this is about, what we're here for, what we're not here for. My love is a tarot reader. And so, we always have to set that as a container for him because he's like, don't ask me about if you're going to find the man of your dreams. I'm not doing that type of reading. So don't even go and he's very direct about it. So it's like, you either want his reading or you don't. Like he's just very clear about it. And I think it's great because you know exactly what you're going to get when you go to him. He set his boundaries as, don't ask me those questions. If you want to know the shadow work that you need to do, then let's go. I'm here for it. But Other than that, I don't want to hear about it. And I think that's important as practitioners. If you're the type of person that isn't like, I don't like to do, Akashic readings that are like that too. Like, is he my soulmate? I'm like, do we really need, like, there's more that we could talk about around that, right? Like, and I'm the same way. Like, that's not the conversation that I'm here to have. Now, there's other readers that will have that conversation with you, but I think it's important as healers that we know, like, these are the type of readings that I like to do. These are the type of clients that I like to work with in this way. It's important for us to understand that, so that we do set the expectations and we create our containers so that it is very, very clear for our clients. I would love if we could dive into, because we have clients that are oftentimes seeking that spiritual guidance, that are in some sort of transitional phase. They might be stepping into spirituality, right? Like Natalia talked about, they're like, I kind of like this, but I'm not sure because I've heard some things and I'm trying to figure this out. How do we support their growth so that they're not taking on like us as being the center of their spiritual identity, right? Because they can easily just put, oh, this is what spirituality is. She represents that. So how do we not do that, especially when they're very, very vulnerable?
I think that comes back to the education factor, like, and meeting them where they are. Where are you on your path? How much knowledge have you got? Where are you coming from? And what are you dealing with right now? And like, you walk with the person from there. And I think that's one thing that I love so much about spirituality is that's what it's designed for. You're meeting the person exactly where they are, whereas organized religion, it's all that hierarchy, and they've got to meet the person that hierarchy where they are. You've got to come up to their level, and if not, well, good luck in the depths of hell. That kind of stinks for you. So I think that really is the beautiful thing about spirituality, is you're meeting that person where they're at, and educating them where they are, and again bringing up the toolbox. Here are some starting tools. If a person comes to me for their first reading, I mean, I love to read for newbies. Like, popping people's reading cherries is my favorite. Like, it really is. But I handle it in such a way that I don't inundate them with information. I don't just leap straight into doing prediction or doing the reading. I'll give them a little bit of a mini crash course of like, this is what tarot is. This is how it works. These are your expectations. You gotta ease people into those transitions. It's you don't take someone who's new and fresh to spirituality and give them a whole lot of ayahuasca and be like, okay, cool, I'm gonna see you on the other side. Like, hey, yeah, that's mean, that's awful, that's not what we do. Like, where's your integrity? So like, see where the person is at, and like reading your clients that you're working with, and like really understanding them. Doing a little bit of I suppose analysis in a way, having conversations, opening up the box and being like, what's inside, what are we working with, and you just take the journey from there, one step at a time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the whole point is, like you said, meeting someone where they're at. And the thing that I love about spirituality and being a healing practitioner, and I'm speaking for myself here, not everyone might agree, but there's, like you said earlier, there are multiple ways to get to the same destination. There are so many different modalities. There are so many different belief systems. There are so many different things. It's about finding what truth resonates with you. And as a practitioner, as an ethical practitioner, you need to understand that your client may not have all the same beliefs as you do. And this is why it's so important to figure out, by asking those important questions, where are you on your journey? What resonates true for you so far? What more do you want to learn about? And giving them options so they can figure out the truth, what their truth is on their own, instead of being like, okay, well, this is what worked for me. Okay, well, here's a whole bunch of other things that you can explore on your own to see what your truth may be, what resonates with you. Because spirituality, unlike religion, does not have one answer. It has a lot of different answers, and you can pull from each different thing and take what resonates for you and create your own truth. And this is something that I wanted to mention earlier, was that as a practitioner, you need to know what your limitations, what your expectations are that you set with your clients and be like, okay, well, I can help you with this, but I can't help you with this because it's outside of my wheelhouse. I could guess, but who wants to do that? Who wants to hear that from a position of authority, right? That you're paying someone for, who's supposed to know what they're talking about. Okay, well, I know someone who can help you with this part. And I think this is something that a lot of practitioners forget, because I was just having this conversation with someone earlier. People are struggling, not struggling, we're all still building our practice. We're still building what we're doing. And we're all building this for when humanity starts to wake up, for when, we go through this ascension process. And right now we're all trying to sell to each other and it's not working properly. We do readings for each other, we do help each other out, but right now is the time where we should be networking and building those relationships so that when people start waking up massively, as they're starting to do,
Starting to,
our
yeah.
workloads are going to be overwhelming. And so we have to know where we can help, where we can't help ethically, and who we can refer them to. And that's so important, to build those relationships and to network with people and figure out who is a false guru, who is really faking it and isn't really doing the work, who is and is really good to work with, has good energy and has that expertise and knowledge that my client might need, and not feel bad about referring them out, because that it's another energetic exchange. It's a two-way street. I refer this person to you, you refer someone to me. And that's how it's supposed to work. We're supposed to uplift each other. We're not supposed to be, in competition with each other, because we all do different things and we're not going to be one answer for everyone. That's just not how it works.
Nope.
Absolutely. I mean, Danny and I, we did the panel for March, collaboration over competition, right? And that was the whole conversation. Is like, as practitioners, we cultivate our own medicine. Your medicine is cultivated, sure, through your modalities, but through who you are and your experiences. And as much as I have theoretical knowledge about the practice of Reiki and Akashic readings and astrology, they're not my wheelhouse. If someone comes to me and says, "Can you do an Akashic reading for me?" I'd be like, "No, I definitely cannot do that for you." Will you do a Reiki session for me? No, I can't do that for you. But you know what? I do know a bunch of practitioners that I can refer you out to. So we do need to build those networks. It's incredibly important, and also because it stops that isolating feeling as a practitioner, where you're like this island floating around in the ocean by yourself and you're like, oh God, I've got to try and heal 8 billion people on the planet. Like, no, not every modality is going to be for every person, and not every person's medicine is going to be for every person. Sometimes they do need to have an astrology reading, and sometimes they need to have Reiki. Sometimes they need to go and have a whole lot of ayahuasca with a Peruvian shaman. You've got to have that network and not be scared to have that network. We're hugely, hugely unique for a reason. There's probably hundreds of thousands of practitioners, but there's 8 billion people who need us. Like there's plenty to go around. There really is. And Heather, I love that you brought up that thing of, when people wake up in mass, and I mean they absolutely, there's that huge surge that's coming. And that's the reason critical mass exists, is because that awakening is happening. We've got to know who's doing what. You don't go to a radiologist for surgery. You don't go to an ENT to have your uterus removed. It's the same thing. Doctors refer out. We've got to refer out. And we've got to be comfortable in doing it. There's no threat there.
I agree. I love that you brought that up, Heather. I think that collaboration over competition, and I think Tam, you and I had a voice note exchange about this recently, and there's enough people around. And again, my wheelhouse is not Akasha Records. I have tarot cards, but I don't use them like you use them, Tam. So, um, I think it's very important to have that network, that pipeline of people, because people are starting to wake up. I was at an event last week, and there was this whole conversation and dialogue about people wanting to do more holistic things to take control of their body, and things that have been around for a while. But I think it's important to say, hey, this is where I operate in. This is the space I can operate in. And there's no shame in saying, I know Heather who does Akashic readings. I know Tam who's into the tarot cards, and Danny who does the astrology. I think it's really important. And I think the world, this, I almost said secular world. I still use some language like I'm in the church still. But the world needs to see the collaboration between the practitioners, because there's something else that's at play that they're taught right now. This whole, well, I got to get to it before she gets to it or before he gets to it. I think that's super, super, super important. And I agree with you. And then going back to the meeting them where they are, um, asking questions, doing the assessment, like what you were talking about, Tam. And, like I did a Reiki session not long ago, and this was a very open-minded individual, but they were still very tied to just, Jesus. I'm still a follower of Jesus. And I said, okay, fine. Do you want to invite Jesus into this session?
Yeah.
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 Do you want to invite Jesus into the session? And it didn't compromise this person. The person actually felt really good about it and then was interested in learning more, because somehow when they were on the table, they figured out, wow, this has been here a long time. I wonder if this is something Jesus did. So I just think it's important, and especially too, because I feel like it makes the client feel more at ease when they have the safety of knowing that, okay, yes, she's trained in all of this stuff or these different modalities, but there's something about her that's very compassionate and has this awareness that this is where I am. And it just creates them being more vulnerable with you, sharing more, but also it brings about referrals too when there is a dialogue between the two of you where they know they're being met where they are. So I think all of that is key. The collaboration, asking the questions, and just giving people the information that they need, because people, I think right now they're looking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would 100% agree with you, Natalia. I think there is the concern, I think, and what I think critical mass is really helping with this is in supporting it in the best direction, is there's so much information out there that not all information is good information. Not all information is accurate information. And so that is, even as a practitioner, it can get a little bit challenging, because it's like, well, on TikTok, the girl was saying, and it's like, okay, right? Got it, right? Like, and I love that you all have this agreement, and I think this is part of this community here, is that, first off, Tam attracts the best people, but it is this idea of that we meet them where they are, right? Like, I'm not going to start being anti-God or anti-Jesus, right? If you're somebody that uses the word Jesus or God, like, that is, I would never do that. That's where you are, and that's where we're going to open the space. Like, let's do it. Like, I'm okay with that. And I think that goes back to doing my own healing work around, for a long time, God was not a word that I could use or I could say, or I could be in environments where they were using that word. And that was me doing my own work to really be able to hold space for people who are in transition, right? Who might be tiptoeing in and feeling like, I don't know. And for me to be like, no, we're not talking about God here, right? That would definitely push them off, and maybe even push them off in a direction where they don't even consider spirituality anymore. But that is the beauty, I think, that you all have said of spirituality, is that there are so many pathways within this realm that you can take and that you can go on. And us as practitioners, we might follow a certain path, or we might be involved in certain practices, but that's not the end all be all. And we know that as well. And so leaning into that, as you mentioned too, Heather, the collaboration. I know for a beginner practitioner, I was like, I can help them. I can help them do it all, right? And realized really quickly that that was a disservice to my clients, right? My ego trying to be like, you could help anybody, Danny. You know these tools and that can fix everybody. And that wasn't definitely not the case. And it came with my own work, right? Working with my own ego to be like, no, no, Danny, you don't know it all. And that's okay. That doesn't take away from what I do know. That doesn't take away from my own authority and my own medicine. And so if there is any practitioner out there that's like, yeah, but what if I can do it all? I'm sure we all could. As Tam said, she can lean into astrology. She can lean into Reiki. Is it her primary tool? No, it's not. And so she can lean in when she wants to. But if somebody is specifically looking for something that's outside of your scope, it is in integrity and in the best situation for your client to refer it out. And I mean, I have a list of practitioners that I have that I can refer out to. I don't do Reiki, I don't do Tarot, right? Those aren't, I know them, like, right, but I don't do them, and that's not my wheelhouse. And so I will definitely refer out to people who are looking for something specific around that or need that specifically, right? You go do that and maybe come to me next. Like, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but that's for them. That's for them. And that's for us to be able to do that. Ladies, is there anything else as you look at this topic about projection and authority that there's something in there that you're like, you know what? I know we didn't talk about my heart to say that. Is there anything that you'd like as we start to bring this episode to a close?
I wouldn't mind hinging. Go for it.
Nope. Pam, you go first.
We could do this alphabetically if you like.
I'm always last. Listen, look at my last name. Come on.
I mean, I was going to hinge off of what Danny said there, integrity. Like, integrity is so important, and I think that is one of the big things that I see in people moving away from religious hierarchy and religious structures is that lack of integrity. It's just, I am the ultimate authority and what I say goes. Whether that person is actually a good, decent human being is besides the point. They're just the person on the pulpit telling you how to do your life. Yeah. Whereas in spirituality, we lean a lot more into that integrity. Well, some of us, not all of us, there are the practitioners, well-known names out there that don't lean into that integrity. And I think that that's where you can see that hierarchy coming into spiritual spaces. That Deepak Chopra is a great example. Let's drop the name. Why not? Yes. That he's been around for years, and I'm seeing people say there was always something about him that didn't feel right. I mean, for me, I've never read one of his books. I've never looked at any of his podcasts. There was always kind of like I don't know about this person. Something here doesn't feel correct. And it's lack of integrity. There isn't integrity there. He piggybacked off of deep ancient spiritual knowledge, which it's ingrained in all of us since the dawn of time. That's how we've always been, and utilize that for a source of power, to be in that position of hierarchy. That's why he's worth millions, and that integrity aspect is hugely important. If you're going to work in spiritual spaces, integrity and congruence, I think, are the two things that you've got to just have that. Any spiritual practice that you do is not going to instantly make you a good human being. Spiritual practice is going to enhance who you are. It's up to you to do the hard work of breaking down the ego and the power and the lack of integrity and build those things. And then your spiritual practice will enhance that for you. That's a huge important part. I love that you brought that word into us. It's a big part of the conversation.
I will say this. I was thinking about you can see it on the internet, and you can usually call out the bullshit real quick. When they're just trying to make some money and they're promising you heaven on earth in a 48-hour weekend course. I think it's so important, and this probably falls into the integrity aspect of being practitioners. It's not a quick fix. And, it is important to help educate our clients about looking for this because there is, how should I say, there's just, I call it an epidemic of healers that are out here trying to make a quick buck and
Mm.
taking advantage of people and handing them shit
Mm.
after the class, right? If I can just say that. And it really pisses me off because people are falling for it. And this is why integrity is so important. And you mentioned Deepak Chopra. I was very shocked to see that information. I never like ascribed to a whole lot of his things, but I knew who he was and I was familiar and I listened to him here and there, not often. But also, you see that same dynamic happening within the church structure.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And people are wising up to it. And so there's this skepticism that's at play. And so they're kind of like, again, this goes back to, I want to know, but I'm not sure. I want to know, but I'm not sure because I see the BS over here and I see the BS over here. Let me just keep to an island of myself and maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. Integrity is so, so important. And it is I feel like, and I can't spit, I'll say for myself, not everybody else. I always tell my clients, you have intuition. It is present. You were born with it. The only thing is, if you have been entrenched in religion, there's a voice that's speaking a little bit louder. We got to get that voice and make it be quiet so that you can hear yourself, the divinity in yourself speaking. Because I think that it's just going to be very, very important as I'll just say, as the structure of organized religion continues to fall and fade away, that's when that mass influx of people are going to be like, okay, I'm ready. I'm really, really ready to take my life back and to take my power back. So I did want to say that I wanted to talk about the stuff I'm seeing on the internet.
Natalia, I'm glad you brought that up because I think that is like a big fear. I know for me is like people see that, right? They see the social media,
Mhm.
the TikTokers,
Mhm.
whatever, YouTubers that
Mhm.
are putting stuff out there, and people that are newer are
Mhm.
thinking like, oh, that's what spirituality is. And that becomes now that's the expectation, like that's what they're
Mhm.
expecting it to be. And so then they get into our spaces and it's like, oh wait, what? What's going on here? Right, it's different. And I think that's important to recognize is like that's something that we're going to have to navigate as that pops up into our sessions, right? As those come, into our sessions where they think that this is what it is. And then actually, and I hope and I'm sure in future episodes we're going to be talking about this, but that's what it feels like is like we're going to have to be navigating that for sure.
Definitely. I think one of my pet peeves on the internet at the moment, because I follow quite a few readers, and then the people that do the manifestation things, and they have that marketing tactic in their reels where they're like, to affirm, hit the like button. And I'm like, honey, hitting the like button is not going to affirm shit for me.
It's
Like
just getting
I
them
affirm
engagement.
that.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's to get the engagement and get the likes, and it's a really shitty tactic because it's misinformation. It's complete and utter misinformation on what spirituality is and what it looks like. And again, it takes that um work that we do and it diminishes it into likes, clicks, and follows, and then you get the practitioners who aren't getting the likes, clicks, and follows, and they're like, I'm failing. I'm not good at what I do. And imposter syndrome comes from that. And if we want to bring in the religious factor, I mean, Jesus said it himself, what everything I can do, you can do and more. He was out there
Mhm.
flipping the tables in the churches and being like, the fuck are you doing? Like, what is this hierarchy nonsense that you are doing? Like, what are you doing in my
Right.
in my house
He
doing
fought
it for
against that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
me?
You're exploiting. He was pissed because they were exploiting the people.
Yes.
That's it. That's it.
And
And
so we're just seeing it wrapped in a different pile of shit.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. And I think that's what people are waking up to in organized religion is that, where It's like you gotta hand over your money to the church. And like, what's Jesus gonna do with my paycheck? Like, he does not need another bowling alley, that's for sure. So it does, and it filters into that organized religion, and it's filtering into spiritual spaces. Like we've got to do our work differently. It comes back to that integrity factor. You don't have to like, share, and hit the button in order to get the money manifestation that this person's putting out. You just need to be like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'd like that for myself, please. Thank you. That's how you affirm us.
I think it's so important. I'm going to branch off the integrity thing because I think our culture and our society has ingrained in us with this, everything is information is at the tip of our fingers. It's instant gratification. We're all looking for that overnight quick fix, right? And that's not how it works. So not only do we as spiritual practitioners with integrity have to deal with the false gurus and the false information out there, but now we have to deal with people expecting to get $1 million in 48 hours of just saying affirmations, but haven't done any of the inner work, right? That's not how it works. But these are the expectations that people are coming into our space with. So I think, again, educating our clients and potential clients and addressing those issues head on, not spiritually bypassing them, because it is something that we're going to have that difficult or challenging or important conversation about at some point. So facing it head on and being like, look, did it work? Then let's try something else, right? I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry that you were taken advantage of, but let's try something else. And educating them and explaining to them why it didn't work and what they should do instead, which could look many different ways. So that integrity, that education, that like meeting them where they're at, especially after having a bad experience or being scammed or being like, oh, I clicked the like button and I sent it to myself 3 times. Well, yeah, you just made that person's Facebook be accessible to more people. You got their engagement up, but it did nothing for you, right? So that's not how it works. Let me explain to you how it works. Let me explain to you why that's not the proper way to address manifestation or whatever the case may be. And then on the other side, the other thing I wanted to mention was when Natalia was talking earlier about how a client wanted to invite God, Jesus into the session. So who says God or Jesus can't be part of your spiritual path? Just because they're a part of a religion does not mean they can't be part of your spiritual path. Growing up in a religious family, I had a stigma around the word God. If I saw anything about God, I didn't want anything to do with it. I had to do the inner work and find out it wasn't God that I had a problem with. It was the things that people did in the name of God, right?
Yep.
So I had to work through that. So I just started replacing the word God with universe or with source, because I don't bash religion, but I mention a lot of things that I don't agree with a lot. But I will say, there is one thing that I do love about organized religion. If you really look at the basic core principles of whoever their religious teachers were, whatever the basis of their core teaching is, outside of the fluff, outside of the interpretation, but the basic core teaching, it is all about love. It's all about unity. And they're all saying the same thing, just using their own people, their own words. And if you take all of that away and you really look at it, it's all the same thing. And I look forward to the day when people from all backgrounds, all religions, spirituality, all of them can sit down together and really figure that out and work together and appreciate the diversity and the uniqueness of everybody's belief system, because they're not all going to be the same. 2 people can be Catholic and still not have the same ideology, right?
100%.
So you have to meet them where they're at and bring Jesus in, bring Hare Krishna in, bring Buddha in, whoever. Talk about God. God might be God for you. I call it source, but it's the same exact thing. So yeah, I just ran over.
That's all right. That was a mic drop, Heather. That was a mic drop. And I will just say too that I love, I look forward to that time. And I'm not against, I'm not against Christianity or religion. I don't like the Jesus that they be saying that they represent. I'm not a fan of that Jesus, because I think if he came back, he'd be like, that's not what I meant.
Yep. Nope.
That's not what I meant when I said that. But also the fact that, and I say this a lot, you are a divine expression of love.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
A
100%.
divine expression of love. And the divinity is timeless, it's limitless, it's creative. It will show up in whatever way it wants to show up. I mean, I watch the trees out my window. It's the symphony in the wind. Okay, that's divinity, right? We are living, breathing, divine expressions of love. And I love that there's not one path. There's
Mm-hmm.
not one path. And I do look forward when we can sit down and go, okay, I know you said this. Is this what you mean by this? You're just using a different word.
Mm.
I think that's why teaching your clients
Hmm.
and even other practitioners to use discernment, because like you said, the Jesus that they're interpreting now, like if you go to church on a Sunday, it doesn't matter what church, you're going to hear one story from the Bible that is interpreted in a very different way than another person interprets it, because they use it as a weaponized tool to interpret it however they want to get you to do whatever they want. So using your discernment and really figuring out, well, wait, that doesn't really make sense to me. And
Hmm.
really looking at, again, reading between the lines and looking at the core principles and being like, well, a lot of the stuff in the Bible is symbolic. A lot of it is not, oh, he parted the Red Sea and oh, these fish, like being how they depicted Jesus saying, like, what I can do, you can do it, whatever. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact words, but the teaching is the same. Like what he did, and when he said, God is the Father, anything I can do, you can do. And even the rising of the Christ, like everybody's looking for the rapture. Everybody's looking for Christ being. Girl, people do not come back from the dead. What he was talking about is the Christ, the unity consciousness coming back inside of you. Okay,
Yes.
it is all of us practicing what he was trying to preach. We're not going to
Yes.
have zombies out here. Okay, that's not how
Mm-mm.
it works. Hopefully, that's not
Mm-mm.
how it works. I don't know,
Yes.
but the world's a pretty crazy place right now. But
It's
it is not to be taken 100% literally. So again, using your discernment, finding what resonates for you, what makes sense for you, what is your truth.
It's a conversation that I've had with, she's actually been on a couple of our panels for Quartitude, Jill Cummings, and we've discussed the book of Revelations. I mean, she's incredibly well schooled in the Bible. She's in that, and she does that is the work she does as ministry, but she does it in such a beautiful, grounded way. And she's asked my thoughts on the book of Revelations, and the returning of Christ. And I said to her that I don't see the man popping out the clouds and being like, "What up, bitches? I'm back." It's that return of Christ consciousness.
Yes.
And if he did exist in this day and age with us, he'd probably be sitting on the panel with people like us. He'd
Yes.
be having conversations like this with us, where it's like, what are you doing with your life? Why are you running the churches this way?
Right.
And it comes down to linguistics, like words, the words that we use, whether it's Krishna consciousness or Christ consciousness or Buddha consciousness, they're all taught the same thing.
Yes.
It's all that same consciousness. We get caught up in the terms masculine and feminine. That's why when I talk about the shift in consciousness, I try and use the word yin consciousness because it
Yes.
upsets far less people. But it's that shift back into the feminine aspect of the self, because we have that duality by finding that unity. So I think as a global society, because we have so many different cultures. I mean, you're all from the US, but your cultural backgrounds are different. I'm from a different country entirely, so my culture is hugely different. But here we are having a beautiful dialogue. We're all understanding one another. We're all using different words, but it's because we've got the space to hear what the other person is saying. And if we don't understand, we'll be like, can you expand on that? Like, I think I'm understanding. This is how I understand it. So we get really caught up in the words of things. It's we're talking about Jesus. Which version of Jesus? You have the white Christian nationalist version of Jesus, where you got
Right.
white Jesus. White
Right.
Jesus back in apartheid South Africa would not have been able to go to church with me because Jesus was not a white
He
man.
was not a white man. Mm-mm.
He would be, probably sitting in a detention center right now because he's an immigrant, and he's not white. He doesn't fit the grade. So we can't also pick and choose how we want to interpret certain things. Certain things there is actual facts to it, that this is the teachings of Jesus. And if we're looking at where he was born and his actual story, we've got to look at a little bit of factuality there. And we can't just rewrite narratives to suit how we want the things to look. Because now we're using words as weapons. I think, Heather, you'd mentioned that, it's that weaponized use of, Christ. Like, shame on you for using such a powerful man in that way. And he would come and flip your table very fast if he was here.
Jesus was spiritual. Like,
Yes.
that's it. Jesus was spiritual. So
medicine man.
He was absolutely a medicine man. So no matter what, however you want to frame it, and I love that you brought in the word and the idea of linguistics, Tam, because it's 100% it. If we're all having the same conversation right here using different words and coming from different backgrounds, but we can still understand. And that, I think, what we're all hoping for at some point, and I hope it happens in our lifetimes, where we get to see those conversations happening. And I do believe that conversations like this that we're having right here, right now, and the conversations that critical mass community is having is what is leading that. And I'm so blessed to be part of that. And I just want to thank you all for your contributions in today's conversation. We've talked about authority and projection as being our natural human dynamics, but in healing spaces, they require awareness and they require responsibility. And when practitioners stay grounded in that humility with clear boundaries, the work does shift from that independence towards that sovereignty, towards that empowerment. So thank you to Heather Zimmerman, Natalia Dekine, and Tam Dillon for sharing your insight, your experience in this conversation. If this topic resonates with you, we invite you to continue to explore the series and the wider discussions that are happening just like this throughout the critical mass community. And with that, my friends, we bring this discussion to a close.